Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, strengthening the saints against Islam's assault on North America.
Well, welcome back once again to the Corner of Truth and Courage. You're listening to Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. And again, today we have our guest with us, Deborah Weiss. And Deborah yesterday was talking to us about the subject of M103, this bill that is very concerning, that's growing into something that will be implemented in Canada. And so, but before we bring Deborah in, let me remind our listeners that we are in our fall fundraising campaign, and our goal is $20,000 that we're trying to raise here this fall, and we are still not yet halfway to our target on that. But if you could participate in this fall fundraising campaign with a donation today, we would be very, very grateful. You can give on the phone, over the phone, by giving us a call. The number is 800-616-0082. That's 800-616-0082. And to help support us to continue to put out this valuable information on the issues of Islam so that we as Christians can resist and refute the efforts of Islam and its teachings. And your support helps us to do just that. We're on over 80 stations across the country. And again, the number is 800-616-0082, or you can give safely, securely online at fortressoffaith.org. Let me bring back Deborah. Now, Deborah, first, before we have you jump into this again, let me say who she is. She is an attorney and an author. Her new book, The Organization of Islamic Cooperation's Jihad on Free Speech. I kind of misread your title of your book. I'm sorry about that. Jihad simply means to struggle against, to war against. And so, again, I misread that. I apologize. I'm looking forward. I'm going to have to order that. Where can our listeners get a copy of your book?
Oh, you can get it on Amazon.
Okay. Well, I'll be going there at the end of the broadcast and ordering it myself.
It's a thin paperback, so it's pretty reasonably priced.
Okay. All right. Well, you are the go-to person on the subject of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation there in the United Nations. You've done years of research on their efforts to try to shut down free speech. This Resolution 1618, we've had you, the Defamation of Religions, that bill, talk about that on our program on a number of events. And this is kind of in the same area. It's just now coming to our neighbors north of us in the United States, up in Canada, and it's coming to us in the form of M103. We talked about this language that they've got in there, the subject of Islamophobia, which is a Muslim Brotherhood attempt to shut down free speech or any criticism of Islam. And but the reason, one of the reasons why this bill came into place up in Canada is because there was a petition, and it was billed as the largest petition that the Parliament up there had ever received. It's called Petition E411. Deborah, explain what was that all about?
Okay, well, first I'll start by just saying that if it was billed as the largest petition, it's a lie, because there was an opposing petition, a petition that's just the opposite of E411, which was larger, but you never heard about it. But
no.
It had quite a lot of, it had more signatures than E411. Anyway, Petition E411 was initiated by the President of the Canadian Muslim Council and lauded by the National Council of Canadian Muslims, which is formerly known as CAIR Canada, CAIR-CAN, which is a Muslim Brotherhood front group affiliated with CAIR. And I suspect that's why they changed their name, by the way. And it asserted three things. It said that terrorist activity in the name of Islam has been used as pretext for anti-Muslim sentiment. In other words, they're saying that if you criticize or openly and expressly oppose Islamic terrorism, that's not really what your issue is. You're really just an anti-Muslim bigot, and you're using Islamic terrorism as pretext to hide that. Its second proposition is that Islamic terrorists don't in any way represent the values or teachings of Islam, and in fact misrepresent the religion, which I'm sure you, as somebody very well versed in Christian theology and Islamic theology know is basically a lie. I mean, if you look at the life of Muhammad and how he lived, the terrorists are following his lead, and that's what they believe, and that's actually factual. The third thing it claims is that Islam is a religion of peace, and it basically attempts to dissociate Islam from Islamic terrorism. So E411, unlike Motion 103, actually does explain what they're calling Islamophobia. And what they're saying Islamophobia is anything that disagrees with those three assertions. So you can see that it's a piece of propaganda and disinformation, and how it's designed to stifle opposing viewpoints as opposed to expressing true bigotry.
Now, you referenced a counter petition.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because you're right. We haven't heard about that. Now, I know that there were some petitions that were done after M103, but what do you know about this petition that you say was larger than E411 that was cited by Iqra Khalid, who made this M103?
Yeah, E411 was the petition that was cited by Iqra Khalid, who was the Muslim liberal MP who introduced Motion 103. She cited the fact that there were 70,000 signatures on E411 as partial justification for her including that in Motion 103. But what you never heard about is there was a counter petition that opposed the exact same ideas, and that got 79,000 signatures.
Ah, okay. So 9,000 better.
Right.
And it was billed that this was the largest petition that the members of Parliament, that the MPs, had ever received, suggesting that they needed to have this motion put out there. Now, this motion basically is coming under the guise that, you know, we just want to protect people from being discriminated because of their religion. However, the only religion that's mentioned in this motion is Islam, and it has this term Islamophobia. And then they mentioned this E411 petition that was designed only to deal with the fact that Muslims feel that they're being discriminated in Canada. So this bill M103 is purely based upon to protect Islam more than it is about protecting other religious groups from discrimination. Would you characterize it that way, given the facts that we know?
Actually, not exactly, because it does say that it says condemns Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. So I do think it would be broader than that. However, what's odd about it is that the Islamophobia is the only one that's mentioned by name. I don't think it would be limited to protecting Islam, but it's the word Islamophobia and the fact that it was singled out, and more importantly, that it's such a vague and ill-defined term that's really the problem. And the motion also says that it will, so this is what the motion says. It says, in the opinion of the House, the government should, A, recognize the need to quell the increasing climate of hate and fear, which, as I mentioned before, are emotions, to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination, to take note of the issues raised by petition E411, and that is the problem. It doesn't expressly state in the four corners of Motion 103 how it's defining Islamophobia, but it is referencing petition E411, which is pretty clear that E411 and therefore M103 is defining Islamophobia as something much more than discrimination. That it's viewpoint discrimination. It's not religious discrimination. It is political viewpoint discrimination. And then, of course, the other issue mentioned in Motion 103, which you referenced, is the request to have the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage undertake a study to do a number of things, including come up with solutions to what they're calling a problem, and again, singling out Islamophobia. The other thing is the way it's worded. It says to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism, implying that it's somehow racist to be Islamophobia, which is a meme of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and of CAIR and of Muslim Brotherhood front groups. They're trying to lump in a dislike of Islam with racism. But racism is discrimination and not legal because it's an immutable characteristic. It has nothing to do with the content of your character or your values or your viewpoints or what kind of person you are. But if you don't like the ideology of Islamic supremacy, how is that racism? It's not.
Well, and there's another side too there, is that Islam is not a race.
Right.
You know, it's a religion. It's a belief system. It originates in Arabia, but only 15% of the Muslims in the world are Arabs. The largest Muslim countries in the world are in Asia. Indonesia, Pakistan, India are the top 3 Muslim countries, but Islam is not a race. And to characterize it as a race is a, well, kind of a red herring here a little bit, or, you know, it's just it's a guise here. So
well, it's doing it on purpose, because what could be worse than being discriminatory based on the color of someone's skin?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this term Islamophobia is an effort, in my opinion, it's an effort to slander someone, you know, to call someone an Islamophobe. It's, you know, it's using, you know, a language that will hopefully shut a person down. It's like calling someone a racist. Well, no one wants to be called a racist.
Right.
And so, you know, oh, well, forgive me, I'm so sorry. No, I'm not taking that position. And then they cower away from their concern, their position, because they're being labeled and characterized as that. And the same thing with Islamophobia is another objective to, you know, it's name calling, you know, and to attach that label to someone is, you know, people don't want that to be labeled that way.
Yes, they put all the words together. It's all the same thing. You're a bigot, you're a racist, you're an Islamophobe, as you said, all name calling for the purpose of shutting you up, and that has been used in policy arenas with dire consequences. If you remember what happened at Fort Hood, when Major Hassan gave a PowerPoint presentation talking about jihad and what Muslims are planning to do, and there were several people attending, working in the military and national security, who were alarmed about it, but they were afraid to report it to their supervisors or do anything about it because they were concerned that they would be labeled as an Islamophobe or a bigot and that it would adversely affect their career. Instead, they were silent, and as a result, people got killed.
Wow. And that's exactly what happened in England with the police, with that rape gang that was going on up there in the northern part of England. The police didn't want to say anything because they'd be considered Islamophobes and so on there. Well, folks, time has run out for today's broadcast, but we're going to have Deborah on with us again tomorrow as we continue on the subject of M103. Deborah, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And folks, we'll be back tomorrow. Join us again at the Corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.